In 1997, I have seen this crossword for the first time, and in 2010, my name is now below that crossword. 13-year journey. I was the first, and I still remain the first and only crossword constructor from India to have made puzzle for the LA Times. This is my 27th year. Stock market. I deal in capital markets. My expertise lies in taking companies public. So I have done like 75, 80 IPOs, raised $50 odd billion worth of equity in global markets. On October 9th, I launched my WhatsApp group, and today I have 4,000.
Hey everyone, this is Utkarsh and welcome to Tribex, where we chat and deep dive with exceptional folks who have paved their own ways to be a leader in their community or space. Today I have with me Mangesh Ghogre, who is a renowned crossword constructor. His puzzles have been featured in New York Times, LA Times, the Wall Street Journal, and so on. And he's the first Indian to do that. Apart from that, he's equally successful and renowned investment banker, leading marquee IPO deals like $27 billion LIC IPO, SBI Cards IPO, and so on, which makes me feel very jealous of him because I'm still figuring out balance in life. But I'm equally in awe by his journey and excited for this conversation. So, without further ado, I would like to welcome Mangesh to Tribex. Welcome, Mangesh.
Hi, Utkarsh. Hi, everyone.
So, to start off, Mangesh, I would like you to tell me a bit about your early days, childhood, and what do you used to dream about in those days.
My early days, as far as I can recall, my childhood went and my early education, pretty much till 10th and 12th grade, happened in Panvel, which is on the outskirts of Mumbai. Actually, it's somewhere midway between Mumbai and Pune. So it is, yeah, slightly far from Mumbai. Uh, when I was young, I used to be very good at studies. So yes, I obviously was driven to do well, and the obvious sort of uh, path is to take the engineering or the medicine course. In those days, I'm talking about like 90s, early 90s. So yeah, I came from a background in which my dad, mom were not very well educated. My mom is like she's like a 12th pass. My dad is a diploma in mechanical engineering. So both of them are not highly educated. So clearly for me, education was a priority to become successful or, have a better life, so to speak. So I used to dream of doing well in my studies, of going to a good college and having good education. So that's where, my early childhood was, which I think honestly was pretty much 99% of people at that point in time, with whom I used to play or with whom I used to stay. So very run of the mill, so to speak. Nothing special.
Awesome. About me, I think my childhood days was about, what could I do to be part of the smartest people. Till sixth, I was just, trying to, get up with the studies. I used not to do well. But when a cousin challenged me, neither you do good in sports, neither you do well in academics. What are you doing in life? So I took that as a challenge and I thought I should study hard, try to memorize stuff and try to figure out patterns, and then I used to do good well in studies post sixth. And then also opened me, since I come from very small town, Firozabad, right, where bangles are made, right? So
Right.
it got me thinking ki, what can I do here, right? How can I, be, more interdisciplinary, learn more things. Or so I used to participate in debates, theater. I started exploring myself. So that's where my
Right.
journey began. I'm very interested to know, where did your journey begin in terms of what came first, finance or crosswords, right? So how did you figure it out?
So this is an easy answer. Definitely crosswords came first. So even if you look at my career right now, my banking career is, let's say, 20 odd years, but my crossword career is, this is my 27th year, because I started in 1997, the day or rather the year I entered engineering. I went to VJTI in Mumbai for my engineering course. And in 1997, I first time in my life I saw a crossword where I really wanted to spend some time. Finance came a lot later. Finance came in, the run of the middle class son or a daughter takes in 90s, which is 10th, 12th, engineering or medicine. Then you do an MBA and then you join a company to work. So pretty, done and dusted. So that's when I joined my professional career. Is what finance then happened to me. I did major in my B school in finance, but crosswords had already entered my life by then for a good, you know, 5 6 years now. So definitely crosswords came first.
So while I was in ninth, or I was 9, 10th, around that period in my life, we used to have a library period where we all used to go to
Yes,
library,
yes,
and some of two, three folks who used to be very smart in academics like you, they used to solve crossword puzzles. And some
yeah,
people like us used to feel FOMO. They used to also try, but at the end of the library period, we used to get to
correct.
know we did it all wrong, right? So what motivated you, to look, crosswords from another angle? Maybe, because after a point you get busy in life, right? How did you
Yes.
kept going at it? What made you so interested about crosswords?
So just like you, and you rightly mentioned the library period in engineering when I entered, and I used to stay in hostel in my college. And in hostel, as you can imagine, I don't know whether you have stayed in hostel, but in hostel, typically people come from out. So whoever is closer to the college does not get admission in hostels. Whoever is staying further from college will get admission in hostel. So typically, all my classmates were from far-flung places like Nagpur or Satara, Nasik. Some people came from Jammu and Kashmir, right, Madhya Pradesh. All those people came. So all, so to speak, outsiders to Mumbai, right? And the English language, the culture. And if you speak to any engineering student, you will find out that everybody in that point in time, I don't know now, was hung up on either taking up GRE or GMAT to do postgrad in US or UK or wherever. So in VJTI, which is after the IITs, it is a top engineering college in Mumbai. Everybody obviously is driven alpha, 90 plus and all that. So everybody was hung up on getting a great GRE or a GMAT score. And the reason we started doing crosswords was to improve our vocabulary, because in both these exams there is a vocabulary section, and I'm sure it is there in CAT also or any other entrance exam which tests your aptitude. And I have studied in English medium, but you know how it is, right? You can imagine in early 90s, early 80s, late 80s, even if you went to an English medium school, I still remember speaking in English was a taboo, right? If you want to estrange your friends, you speak in English. If you want to make more thick friends, you speak in Hindi. Best friends, you speak in Marathi, right? So
Oh,
language was a barrier, right? Language was a barrier. In fact, I remember if you speak in English, people will take it as a message that you don't want to be friends and you are showing off and flaunting and all that.
yes.
And the more Hindi you speak, you're, "Arey, ye to apne jaisa hai," right? He's one of us. So even if you knew English, we will not use English. We will never speak English. English was only restricted to English class and English exam and whatever. Right? So from that backdrop, we all came. And this is, I'm talking about, I was in Panvel, right, which is like 60 kilometers outside Mumbai. Just think about somebody coming in from Satara, which is like 300 kilometers outside Mumbai, or Nagpur, or Kolhapur, or Nasik. So everybody had their own baggage of language, and how language was a gateway to a club. Right? If you speak English, you become part of some friendship circles and all that. So we started doing this crossword in which used to come in Times of India. I still remember it used to come on the last page. At that point in time, there were no supplementaries in Times of India like we have right now. Like you have a Pune Times or a Bombay Times or a Delhi Times. There was no supplementary. It used to come on the last page, and we used to do it. And just like you, we solved as a group of 12, 13 people. We got together every day in the morning at breakfast table. All these smart kids will come together and try to solve. And as is rightly happened with you, within month or two, people just vanished
Hmm.
because same one, people get busy. Second, it's difficult. Third, people just realize that there are better ways of improving vocabulary, right? So they will do something else, like ratta marenge, notes banayenge, kuch aur karenge, ye nahi karenge. So that's how my story started, and I was the only one who actually was left holding the paper, so to speak. And today is the 27th year. I'm still holding it.
Great,
So
great
that's how it's.
journey. So long journey. It's like you are in meditation with crosswords, right? So
Yeah, you can say that because even today I'm not able to give an answer. Now I'm making crosswords, so it's a very different ball game than solving. But now I'm making crosswords. How I get the idea to make a crossword, to make clues, they just appear out of thin air. I have I have not written my I don't have a bank of ideas. I have not written any notes or I have not read any books. There are no books in crosswords. So it just is like music, right? It just appears to you, and you just wait for the right thing to appear. It's very miraculous, I will say.
correct, correct, correct. When I think about my days when I
Yeah,
discovered passion for storytelling. I remember watching movies a lot, but it feels whether when you come from that background, whether I'm coming from Marwadi background, you're expected to run a business and not think much about arts. But
yeah.
my interest was a lot in watching movies, watching different things or different stuff across TV, and that used to excite me. And I once pursued my father to learn tabla or musical instruments, but back then there used to be not so many good tutors. Even I attended one
Hmm.
tutor, but it was not so good. So eventually I have to keep it off and focus on my studies. But when I
Yeah,
came to my undergraduate college, it allowed me some space and I started learning music. And then eventually after I did my graduation, did my startup, I did go to Bollywood to work with one of the top art
yeah.
director in Bollywood, right? So eventually it comes to you if you are really interested in that, right? That you're able to keep going behind it no matter what what struggles you face. I want to know from you as a constructor now, since
Yeah,
there is one thing when you watch something from distance, like I watching movies, right? But
yeah.
it's another thing to create it, right? So I want to know a bit about it. How did you find out how to create those puzzles? Because there
Hmm.
is again no textbook how you create those, right? So how did
Yeah.
you found that interesting piece out, which is nowhere available in the world, and
Right.
then being a leader in this space? So how did that happen?
So, as I said, my solving journey started in 1997,
Hmm.
and I solved for 12 years at a stretch, right, continuously, pretty much every day. I used to solve,
Oh,
which in itself is a long commitment to that.
hmm.
I'll say addiction. If you're
Yeah.
doing it for such a long time every day, and I used to do it on my commute, right? When I used to travel from Panvel to first my college, then my MBA college, then my work, right? It was in Fort Mumbai. So I used to get that 1.5 hour private time where I'm just sitting in a train and I'm not doing anything. So I used to solve the crossword in the newspaper, and I used to always see an American byline, obviously because the crossword came from LA Times. Even today, it comes from LA Times. After solving for so long, I got one day frustrated that why is this byline American, right? And secondly, why cannot I see Indian words in this crossword? So I think the both were related questions because since it's made by an American, I cannot expect a lot of Indian words to appear in the crossword. So I wanted to see more Indian words in the crossword, right? And how do I do that? By creating my own crossword. So I decided that I'm going to create my own crossword because then I will have some flexibility about what I can do in my own crossword. So in 2006, 7, around 10, 12 years, 10 odd years after solving, by that time, some internet had come in India. So if you imagine in 1997 when I started, there was no internet. The first dial-ups came, I think, in 1998, 1999. You will remember the web cafe days,
Yeah.
20 rupees per hour, 40 rupees per hour, right? And those BSNL की जो dial-up की घंटी बजती थी. तो तभी कोई इंटरनेट नहीं था, so there was no access as such. There was hardly any Star Movies or HBO. But in 2006, 2007, good internet had come. So now I was sitting in Mumbai. This whole ecosystem of Crosswords is in US. So the only way I could reach out to them was by email, right? Because phone calls, you can imagine, in 2006, 2007 were unheard of, like 200 rupees a minute and all that. So international calls were not. First of all, I didn't have phone numbers. Secondly, why will anybody speak to me on phone, right?
Correct.
So I found out that I can reach out to these people on email. So I and at that point in time, you will also remember this concept of Yahoo groups and Google groups were very popular. अभी वो इतना फैशन में नहीं है, but Yahoo group, every college had a Yahoo group and every group had a Yahoo group. So I reached out to people through these groups and I asked them that, hi, I have been doing crosswords for like 10, 12 years. I'm in Mumbai, but I want to make one. And to my utter surprise, I found very, very generous people who were willing to help. Because first of all, they were sort of surprised that why does somebody sitting in Mumbai want to make an American crossword? And secondly, they were also surprised with the commitment that this guy actually wants to learn because there are very few people who make these crosswords. So I think that got them interested that बंदा कुछ करना चाहता है, committed भी है, सीखना चाहता है. So I started connecting with one person in particular. Her name was Nancy Salomon. Unfortunately, she passed away during COVID. But she was very, very generous in teaching me how to make crosswords. And I actually learned crosswords over email. So I used to make it, send it to her. She used to give me comments. I will correct it. So, 50, 60 emails are being exchanged. And in those times, what added to the difficulty was that there was no software as such to make crossword. Today, there is some software which takes care of a lot of your work. But that point in time, there were no software. So you can imagine, using, let's say this is a blank sheet of paper. So you make a grid on this, right? And then you make like 50 such iterations because
Oh,
uh, every crossword is an iteration process about which combination fits. So that was the difficult part, a very frustrating part of because by this time you can imagine this was the time when I was about to get married. I was just entering corporate world at a very very junior level, obviously entry level. So the pressure to perform at work is like sky high. You are very driven. There is also insecurity because you have just landed in corporate world. You are a nobody, and now you are doing this, which is not paying. Nobody is
hmm.
appreciating, and
Hmm.
first of all, is not has even got accepted to get published. So maybe that was my starter journey. You can relate with it. So कोई पैसे नहीं दे रहा, कोई ताली नहीं बजा रहा, और हमें पता
Correct.
भी नहीं है कि ये पब्लिश होने वाला है कि नहीं होने वाला है. आप सिर्फ लगे रहो. You try, and I don't know, many in your audience will not be aware, but an average life cycle for me, right then in 2007, 2008, from idea to printing was like 2 years. It's that long a life cycle because from
For one
idea
single
stage for
for
one
one single
crossword.
piece. Oh
for one
wow.
crossword, 2 years. So
Wow.
you make a crossword. That process takes me 6 9 months because I have to communicate with people, learn, make changes, X, Y, Z. Then after few months, if it's ready, I send it. The average time for the editor to respond that time was like 4 months. So you wait.
Oh wow.
After the end of 4 months, I myself forgot my crossword because 4 महीने बाद किसको याद रहेगा. फिर वो हाँ
Correct.
अगर कह देगा या कह देगी whoever is the editor, then the average time to publish from that acceptance is 6 to 9 months.
Oh wow.
So, so it's a very long, drawn period of uh, hard, frustrating work, I will say, because
Hmm.
the process itself is such that you have to fight yourself to get that. So after I started making in 2006, my first crossword was published after like a dozen odd rejections, dozen or 2 dozen maybe, in LA Times in 2010. That was the first
Oh.
time my crossword was published, and that was the biggest day of my life because now what was going to happen is that the same crossword is now going to be published in Times of India because they pick it up from there
Hmm.
after a space of 3 months. And now I will be going on the same train and solving that crossword. That was the big
Wow.
aha moment for me. That in 1997, I have seen this crossword for the first time, and in 2010, my name is now below that crossword. 13-year journey. And I was the first, and I still remain the first and only crossword constructor from India to have made puzzle for the LA Times.
Hmm.
So it's a long journey.
Fantastic. That's real hard perseverance. That's the
Yeah,
definition of
no
perseverance.
textbook. I self-educated myself. No exams. No reference material. Nothing. And I still there is nothing. So
Correct.
yeah,
That's an interesting journey. The so long time you took to just get your name there, right?
yes.
Nowadays, when we start at something, we think why in 4 or 5 months we think why it is not happening, right?
Huh,
So
true.
now
True.
the time has come.
Why is this not flying? Yeah.
So what kept you going matlab, so long, right? Is it your passion for crosswords, and did you had the desire, if I like something, I want to create it? Matlab, is it something that sort of a belief that you have, or how did you keep pursuing that, right?
So couple of reasons. I think it happened over a period of time. So when I started from 2006, 2007 to 2010, right? It was the sheer drive of seeing an Indian byline in that crossword. I just wanted an Indian's name there because I was bored of seeing American name for 13 years, whatever, 10, 12 years. And I was like, why is this always an American name? So that drive kept me going that I want to achieve that.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, the fact that there was no pressure on me, there was no expectation, there was
Mm-hmm.
no timeline, actually relieved me. So nobody was asking me, what are you doing? When will it happen? Is it happening? Are you
Mm-hmm.
successful? Nobody's asking me. Like if you start a startup today, Utkarsh, your parents, your society, your relatives, your friends, peers will ask you intermittently. And
Correct.
one, it is in public domain, right? कि हाँ उत्कर्ष आजकल क्या कर रहा है, ये कर रहा है. 6 महीने बाद बोला हाँ उत्कर्ष क्या हुआ उसका, right? So there is pressure on you because even if I don't ask, you know that there is a question going on. What's happening, right? In my case, there was no pressure. पहली बात तो किसी को समझ में ही नहीं आता था ये क्रॉसवर्ड होता क्या है. और अगर मैं
Mm-hmm.
बता भी दूं तो दे विल रबिश इट, दे विल नॉट इवन गिव वन आयोटा ऑफ देयर ब्रेन पावर टू अंडरस्टैंड बिकॉज दे सेड वेस्ट ऑफ टाइम, छोड़ो आगे बताओ. So which was great. So here is an activity which nobody is bothered about. I am also not bothered about. There's no time pressure. There's no expectation. कब होगा? 6 महीने बाद होगा? 1 महीना? किसी को कोई हवा नहीं है. किसी को कुछ पड़ी नहीं है. So that gave me power. There's no expectation. So even if, let's say, I give it 2 years and not a single crossword is published, nobody is going to cry or nobody is even bothered. So I was very powerful. कि यार फिर तो यार this is like a private affair, right? खुद ही बनाओ, बन गया तो ठीक है, नहीं बन गया तो टाटा बाय बाय. So it was very private exercise. So that kept me going. अगर instead of that, अगर मैं कोई स्टार्टअप या कोई सॉफ्टवेयर बना रहा हूँ या कुछ एग्जाम की तैयारी कर रहा हूँ या कुछ रेस दौड़ रहा हूँ, तैयारी कर रहा हूँ, फिर इट्स इन पब्लिक डोमेन, दिख रहा है कि हाँ बंदा यहाँ ट्रेन करता है, इतना टाइम लगाता है. In my case, it was private, so that was second reason. So that was the early part. And what kept me going once my first crossword was published was I saw that this activity is very powerful. After my first crossword was published, the news appeared in Times of India. तो मुझे मालूम पड़ा कि the fact that my crossword is published in LA Times is big enough news to be published in Times of India, which is like India's big enough newspaper, showed me the power of this activity. So then I thought that if I have this power, how can I use it? Because, and you know what? It was this news that it came was a very easy sell for me. I didn't have to do much to tell Times of India कि इसको आप छापिए. It was very easy sell because they had never heard of such a news. So it was them, for them, it was like a novelty factor. It was not a Me Too. It was not a also ran story कि किसी ने ये रेस जीत ली, किसी ने वो कर लिया, किसने ये अवार्ड जीत लिया. People had not heard of this making crosswords. So easily छप गया. So as I said, yeah, if I spend time, effort making this crossword, I will get lot of powerful space in a wide media. And that actually was a big motivator for me. And you will see that of all my puzzles which I created later, they were not just crosswords, they were like really, really powerful messages which I delivered with my crosswords. And they really hit home. It was beyond my expectations. So, so these are the answers. So initially it was the drive to have my name. Then it was the drive to use that platform to do something with it.
I think one insight that I get from this, conversation is, I think perseverance becomes easy when there is no pressure or expectation from
Yes.
your side and from people around you, right? So you
Yeah.
can keep going at it, keep perfecting yourself, keep growing yourself. And at this point, I am reminded of Gandhiji, right? Where, he, Sarvodaya is the most popular, ideology, or a sort of a book written by Gandhiji, which contains all of his learnings about this idea. So in the
Yeah.
start, he writes to the readers, the very first page of Sarvodaya, he writes it. He says, doesn't matter how old I grow, right? I'll never
Doesn't matter.
cease to grow inwardly. Sorry?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter how old I am, right? I have never ceased to grow inwardly or outwardly, right, as a person.
Right.
And the proof to that is whatever I have written, if you find inconsistency between my ideas, right, the idea one or the idea two, if you are sane and if you follow me truly, then you would consider the second one to be true. So
Yeah.
I'm learning things, I'm discarding ideas, and I'm adopting new ideas, right?
Yeah.
So that is a wonderful, message by Gandhiji, about, learning things, right? Learning new things, rejecting old
Yeah.
ideas, new ideas, experimentation with the life. And he says that my life, is a message, right? Which is he never quoted anything. He said, whatever I have done is what defines me, sort of a thing, right? So, and you also did something about something on Gandhiji, right? So
Yes, yes.
I relate those points. So maybe if you can highlight a bit about how your crosswords become, uh, you know, uh, a platform for message or platform for cultural exchange or a way to discuss ideas or discuss Indian Indian way of Indian ideology, right, in American culture, right? So how did you go
Right.
about that?
So after I published my LA Times, I realized that I was actually missing out on the best crosswords, which is actually the New York Times, which is like way above uh, in terms of both glamour, prestige, and most importantly, the audience you can reach.
Hmm.
So, so I and by that this was like 2012, 2013. I had never solved a New York Times crossword because I was not having access to any newspaper which was publishing the New York Times crossword. But I realized that it is similar to LA Times, but obviously much better quality. So I again self-educated myself into making a crossword for the New York Times. And my first crossword was published, I think, in 2013 in the New York Times. So then I realized that I can reach the best also, which was like the gold standard in crosswords. And then by that time, I had got married. I also had got two kids, and I had entered middle management, right? So you can imagine the first casualty of all those things is crosswords, right? Because one, nobody's bothered. Second, it doesn't get you pay, and third, it's time intensive. So what do? Shut it down first, right? Because then time is taken by wife, kids, job, XYZ. So I then decided that if I'm going to make a crossword, I want to make a crossword which is more bang for the buck, which is not just a crossword, but also has some championing a cause, right? So in 2017, after a gap of 4 years,
Oh,
struggling with ideas, I made a crossword to celebrate American Independence Day in the New York Times. This was a big hit because just imagine somebody sitting in Mumbai, 10,000 miles away, is making a crossword in the New York Times to celebrate American independence, right? So, which is fantastic. So, the local consulate general in Mumbai, Mumbai Consulate of America, they picked up this news, and obviously, this news came in Times of India very widely, reported, and they invited me for the 4th of July celebrations. And he did something powerful. He actually autographed my crossword, saying that this is a great example of US India dosti.
hmm.
So very I very easily saw that how my crossword is now a statement at a diplomatic level between two countries, right? So that gave me a lot of satisfaction that yes, this is what I want. That instead of publishing 50 crosswords, I want to publish one, but it should be powerful. It should carry a message. So then I thought, okay, this is what I did for America. What can I do for India? So in 2019, uh, again after a gap of 2 long years and preparing for that, I made a crossword to celebrate Mahatma Gandhi's 150th birth anniversary. So that again was a very big hit. Mr. Sayyid Akbaruddin, who was then the India's ambassador to the United Nations, he actually tweeted about my crossword. So he picked it up that who is celebrating Gandhi in the New York Times on 2nd of October. So that was the way I was able to bring in focus to Indian culture, and obviously in those crosswords because I was the constructor, I was able to bring in a lot more India into crosswords. So, for example, in my Gandhi crossword, there was Delhi, there was Brahma, there was Rupee, there was Roti. So, a lot more Indian stuff rather than having only American stuff. So that's how I have been using these puzzles to make some impact rather than just another crossword.
It's so nice, so amazing stuff. Matlab, how you differentiated yourself and used it as a platform for message and larger stuff, right? This brings to me a question that Since you are the same person, while you are, you know, in your leadership journey, in your career, right, where you are, being an investment banker, it's a busy role, and the market was just growing when you just entered in the space, right?
Right.
There were new startups, there were new companies going global. Liberalization happened right at that time, right? And you being at one of the leading firm there, right? And also doing crosswords. So, do you
Right.
see? I'll also come. I want you to reflect upon that as well. But I want you to start from. Do you see any commonalities? Because you are the same person dealing
Yeah.
with both the. But do you see any commonalities in terms of how these professions or how these two aspects relate with each other? And then how did I want you to reflect a bit about your IB experience. And then I would like to know more about, IB in simple terms. Maybe let's start with maybe the common thing that connects both.
Sure. Sure. So yes, I also, just like you, Utkarsh, I have also been wondering that am I an investment banker who also does crosswords, or I'm a crossword constructor who also does investment banking? And I have not been able to reach an answer even now. Though I now think that it is tilting towards I am a crossword constructor who also does investment banking. But in the last 20 odd years, definitely I was a full time professional investment banker, and I really loved that journey. I did really well. Uh, but answering your first question was commonalities are definitely there, in the sense that stock market. I deal in capital markets. My expertise lies in taking companies public. So I have done like 75, 80 IPOs, raised 50 odd billion dollars worth of equity in global markets, done bunch of deals like 100 plus transactions. So uh, in a way, stock market is is solving a puzzle, right? Because every second is a new second on the stock market. Right? It's so unpredictable. Nobody can guess what's going to happen next. And in our business of investment banking, it's all about assessment of that risk. That if I am going to do a transaction or if I am going to do a deal, will that deal be successful? Right? When do I launch it? Will it receive reception from investors? Is like solving a puzzle, right? So in a crossword, you will see that there are blank spaces and there are clues, and you have to use those clues to fill up those blank spaces. Those blank spaces are essentially uncertainties, volatility, risks. Nobody knows what's the answer. It's only when you use those clues the jigsaw puzzle fits. So I'm sure as I grew up in my investment banking career, I used these skills to solve my problems about assessing risk, assessing patterns. Now, crosswords is all about patterns, right? Because words are also patterns. So I am sure that skill helped me to understand patterns because in my 20 years, you have seen so many cycles, and the cycles always have some or the other pattern, right? It starts with a small whisper, gets into a roar, then mania, and then bust, right? So that pattern is always there. So I think there are lot many commonalities which I have applied of my crossword skills to my investment banking career. I think one factor which helped me a lot and is still helping me a lot is becoming comfortable with uncertainty. Because every time you do a crossword, every day you open a crossword is like a new puzzle given to you, and you don't know whether you will be able to solve it or not. You have to discover. So there is uncertainty, and this is a challenge to you personally, right? Because you are going to solve it. So you have to prove to yourself that yes, I can solve it, or I needed this help, or this is the way I went about it. So by doing that for like so many years, I became very comfortable with these uncertainties. So that kept me going because in stock markets, I don't need to tell you, right? Every day there is some new involvement, new movement, new news, and you readjust your your workflow accordingly or your strategy accordingly. So that was, I think, a big benefit to me, that I was very comfortable with uncertainty and still am. I think I thrive where questions are unanswered. You actually become more and more driven to find those answers. So that's
Mm.
the commonality part. Coming to investment banking, yeah, as I said, my specialty is IPOs, doing public market offers. So have done a bunch of transactions for all top corporate houses, be it Mahindras, Birlas. Uh, I've done it for like small companies like 50 to $100 million to as big as the LIC IPO, which was like $2.7 billion. Have done government sector, private sector, venture capital, private equity, everybody involved. Uh, I think my best part of my 20-year career was my last stint with Nomura, which is a Japanese investment bank. Now there again, when I joined them, before me, they had done two IPOs in 9 years before I joined. And after I joined, till I left, we had done 27 IPOs in seven and a half years, which is essentially one IPO every quarter in a very, very exciting phase. And for that, because of that progress, we were able to get top ranking on Bloomberg League tables, leadership position, and I was actually featured in the Fortune 40 under 40 list of best professionals in India in 2019 for my leadership skills in Nomura. So it was very, very satisfying. And I'm sure a lot of my crossword skills definitely helped me in maneuvering that challenge, because India is a cutthroat investment banking market. There are at least 2 dozen players, and it's very difficult to differentiate. So there again, I was able to use my crossword skills to differentiate my firm in a very crowded place, and more importantly, in the eyes of the clients. So we were able to get the mandate. Uh, first to get the mandate, and second, more importantly, is to complete those mandates in a very volatile environment. That's how
So I
you
wish
know.
to know a bit about that's very interesting, right? Making a career in investment banking nowadays, it has become a bit possible for people, but earlier those days, investment banking is very new, right? So I would like to know from you, what is investment banking, right? And how somebody like me or somebody who is into finance, right, or who's starting with finance, right, how can they build a career in investment banking, right? And then how can they think about opening their own firm, maybe because now the market has gone big.
Yeah,
There are funds who deals with smaller IPOs for startups as well.
sure,
How can one build a very good repute with the clients and get started with their firm, maybe?
sure. Investment banking is an institutional play. It is very difficult for somebody who has no institutional experience to suddenly start up an investment banking career. So you definitely need institutional experience. So my suggestion will be to spend some initial career days working in firms, which will, one, give you experience of the product, because what you learn in college and what you happens on the ground is very, very different.
Mm.
And point two, which I think is the most important one, is network, right? Because what is investment banking essentially? Investment banking essentially is that there is a pool of money in this hand, and there is somebody who wants this pool of money on the other hand. Investment banking is bringing these hands together. So somebody needs money, somebody has money, you bring them together as investment banking, right? The bigger the amount, the bigger banker you are. Simple as that. Now, to do that, as I said, you need, because this business deals with money, there is a regulator involved. And because there's a regulator involved, there is an institutional flavor to this business. So you cannot start tomorrow Utkarsh Garg Securities and do it privately with Mangesh Ghogre Securities and you are doing investment banking. That will not happen. You can do private transactions, but if it comes to real capital markets, which is public markets, a regulator is involved. And as soon as a regulator is involved, there is an institution which has to deal with, because there are risks, there are fiduciary duties, responsibilities which the banker or the entity has to take care of. So
Mm.
that's one. So I will suggest start with institution, get some initial experience, build your network. Once you have both experience as well as network in place, then today in India there is a big opportunity to have your own setup, wherein you open your own firm, you get it registered with the regulator, and you start doing the investment banking practice on your own. Broadly, investment banking comes into two or three buckets. One is what I specialize in, which is equity capital markets. Then there is the counterpart, which is the debt capital markets. And the third one is mergers and acquisitions. All the three are, they have some commonality. They also have some nuances. Equity capital markets essentially is dealing with equity, which is essentially that if you are willing to take a risk, you give equity to a business in the hope that they are going to generate value and take your investment from X to Y, but no guarantees that you will get it back. So there is a risk. That's why it is equity. Debt is like your loan, wherein you are lending money, you have certain rate of interest, you get the rate of interest. At the end of the loan, you get the money back. Risk is lower, returns are also lower. M&A is the other game, which is essentially buying and selling of companies or large chunk of securities. So these are the three, I'll say, broad portions in which you fall into investment banking space. In India right now, all the three are doing well, but I will say that there is a lot more, I will say, excitement in the equity capital market space, because the Sensex, when I joined investment banking, the Sensex was at 5,000. Today we are at 70,000, right? So that's the kind of jump which has happened 14 times. So definitely, I'm sure, definitely the growth is going to be a lot more rosier in the equity capital market space, and that will in turn fuel both debt capital markets and the M&A situations. Because as the equity market grows, definitely there'll be deals which will happen. So yeah, that's where broadly equity capital, investment banking space is. Why I'm saying why that you have space now for doing it more as at your own firm's level is because the market, as you rightly said, is growing. So, an institution, if it grows too big, cannot service very small clients. And if a client is very small, they may not be able to afford fees or afford those big institutions, and they may not need such big institutions. So they need customized products. So they need customized service from small-time boutique houses, or maybe small-time individuals who are running an investment bank. The journey will now accelerate as the market does well, and you can see that in the mutual fund space, right? We never as retail investors, mom and pop never invested in equity markets. It was only the big banks which parked their money in mutual funds, or big corporate treasuries, or people who had hundreds of crores, and they will go to mutual funds. So for them, mutual fund was a go-to mechanism to generate value. But now look at today, right?
Correct.
Small layman is investing, because that journey of access has reached from the wealthies to people who are right now at, let's say, lower income, middle income, but want to become wealthy. So that journey will happen across companies.
Correct. And how I also want you to reflect a bit upon how do you build relationships, right? And I think in
Hmm.
capital markets, or in even in venture capital, right, there is a
Yeah.
lot of relationship building that happens with LPs or limited partners, right?
Right.
And equally with the startups as well. And in
Yeah.
investment banking also, there are companies who want to, as you said, raise capital, and there are people or banks or institutions or private players who want to lend that money and get the equity early on the as the company gets listed on IPO, right?
Yeah.
So how did you your the role, which I understand, is basically establish trust between both parties and
Correct.
enable
Yes.
the right. So how do you do that? How do you build that sort of a repute? Of course, you need to have a what I understand is you need to have a degree or something of that sort of that validates your experience or your professional and both educational experience. But what are other things? How do you build that reputation? How do you make both parties comfortable, right? How do you settle disputes, right? How do you settle a certain amount, right? So how do you arrange that? How do you make both party to trust each other, right, on a certain.
Sure. So it is a difficult exercise, some bit of a hide and seek game, like a crossword puzzle,
Mm-hmm.
uh, because essentially, if you look at it, at the heart of it is the ego, right? If you are a buyer and I am the seller, it is basic instinct that you as the buyer want to pay the lowest price and I as
Mm-hmm.
the seller want to get the highest price. And
Mm-hmm.
that is not written in any textbook. It's pure ego. It is pure, you know, our brains working, right? Now, if both of us have to feel good about it, and which is what a good deal translates into, at the end of the day, it's a feeling, right? It's not a fact. So, my job as a relationship banker is to make you feel good that what you are getting is the best. Because let's say I'll give you a classic example, and this is a very, very good question you have asked because we face this every time. Even today, this argument is not settled. That whenever you price an IPO, is it an art or is it a science, right? Because if I price an IPO, let's say at 100 rupees, and if that IPO within 1 month became 300 rupees, right?
Mm-hmm.
The people who sold at 100 rupees are going to question my judgment that how come we got this so wrong, right? And if the 100 rupees becomes 50 rupees in 1 month, the people who bought it at 100 rupees will question me, how did I get it so wrong, right? The people who sold it at 100 rupees are very happy because they got 100 rupees. They are not maybe that much worried about the 50 rupees.
Mm-hmm.
So this balance is never in our, we cannot perfect it. I think nobody can perfect it. There are so many dynamics at play at the end of the day because it's a public market, right? But as professionals or as investment bankers, our drive is to make sure that both the parties feel, again I'm saying feel, that they have got a fair deal because nobody knows what is going to happen tomorrow because market is fluid, right? It changes every day. So today you may price a deal at 100 rupees and you may close the deal and 1 week later you come back and see the market, oh, 100 has become 120, 150, 200. And then you think, should I have waited? Did I underprice it? Nobody has the answer. At that point in time, if I'm able to convince you that yes, what you're getting right now is the best price, I think that's where the art lies. But again, I'm using the word art. There is no science to it. There is no formula in which you say that yes, this was done well.
Mm. I think it merges both of your favorite things is art and science, right?
Yes,
So perfect example of how you know you can marry both things. For me, it has always been a struggle. At one side, it was building my career coming from science and doing my own startup, building product, and then selling it off, and then doing consulting, right? And then at one side, I was very interested in filmmaking, arts, Bollywood, right?
right.
So for me, it has always been struggle. But as you have mentioned, right, you can also marry both things and take inspiration from each other and figure out, right. And I think
Yeah,
on relationship part, yeah, uh, as you have built relationships in your investment banking field or role, right, you've also built a fairly large community of crossword puzzle solvers. It's like
yeah,
I think around 4,000 plus
correct,
people
correct.
who are there in WhatsApp and
Yeah,
they solve your puzzles daily. I'm also in one of those, and people are so diligent, so excited about every day's puzzle. Developed a website also where they go and solve those puzzles, right? So I want to know it from you, how did you build that such a large community? Because nowadays community building is, a very important metric, for any company, right? Because largely the markets have opened up, knowledge have decentralized, right? It's very difficult to differentiate yourself from another brand, right? And community comes centric to it, right? So
Correct.
maybe somebody who is building their own B2C startup or a B2B company can learn from you, right? How to build a community in a such a niche space which doesn't exist, right?
Yeah,
Which is something, sort of a category creator sort of a thing. How did
true,
you
true.
build
No,
that?
I'm glad you used that word. I have been thinking about that word of category creation.
Mhm.
I think I read that in that book, Play Big or Play It Big. That's the book in which I've heard about this category creation. So I'll be honest, because my activity is so unique, it was easy for me to create a category because nobody has heard what I'm trying to do.
Mhm.
Uh, so it becomes very easy. I don't have a reference point. I don't have a comparison point. So
Mhm.
there is a lot of curiosity around what is it about. So that actually gives me that strength that I don't have to be compared with somebody. I set my own rules. How I went about it, I started this. So I'll tell you the genesis of my group was actually I started publishing my mini crossword in the Economic Times. It comes every Saturday, and I realized that there is a mark. I used to get feedback that why does this come every Saturday only? Why can't I have it daily? Now, obviously, the first thing I did was I went and told Economic Times that can we do it daily? But I did not get that feedback, that response. So I said again, as I have done always, when you see a problem, you solve it on your own. Nobody else is doing it. There was no Indian crossword. I made my own Indian crossword, right? So I said, okay, if nobody's going to do it daily, I will do it daily. So I started a website on which I started putting a daily mini crossword. I still do it. My name of the website is mangeshghogre.com, Mangeshghogre
Nice.
.com. And I then used WhatsApp because what happened was I used to put these crossword puzzles and then people wanted to comment on those crosswords or discuss those crosswords. Now, I found out that on WhatsApp, people are very intuitive. It's a very intuitive platform to discuss because you can send message quickly, you can get messages, you can react, you can do lots of stuff. So I started a crossword group. Initially, it was just a group. It was like 5, 10 people who were my friends and family who I used to tell them that this crossword is coming. And then they started liking it. So then they only asked me, how can we get my friends? Because they wanted to solve my puzzle with their friends. They
Mhm.
wanted to discuss it with their friends. So the word of mouth started. So it was pure word of mouth. So what I did was only one thing. I made a very nice message for them to send to these people in their large WhatsApp groups. And that message was, I think, very powerful. That message had only two things. One, the first two lines, I established my credibility that I have got puzzles or crosswords published in the New York Times. So it just, boom, credibility established. And the second two lines that I am now going to dish out an Indian crossword which will have Bollywood, cricket, 90s nostalgia. So I had all the hooks which sell in India and it was free. There was only these three things in my message. My credibility, what I'm going to give you is very, very unique and is free. And people just started piling in. So on October 9th, I launched my WhatsApp group and today I have 4,000, which is like 5 months,
Yeah.
6 months.
It's been
And
free.
this is pure word of mouth. And the power of WhatsApp was that these solvers are from 12 countries. So there is US, there is UK, there is Middle East, there is Hong Kong, Singapore, Ireland. I don't even know some of the countries because of WhatsApp. Because what's happening is anybody who is outside India and is missing India, this is a great way of connecting to India.
Yes.
And anybody who is in India, for them, there is no such product. So for
Mm.
them, again, this is a great way of entertaining themselves. So both the ecosystems get their own value added benefit.
Mm.
So I said, and then what happened was just the sheer word of mouth. Some of the celebrities also joined. So in Marathi industry, you must have heard Sachin Khedekar. He hosts Kaun Banega Crorepati in Marathi and is a very well-known Bollywood actor. Uh, his wife joined, right? She is a big crossword buff. So she joined. Then obviously in her circuit, there are a lot of celebrities in the Marathi film industry. They joined. So suddenly they started putting in, their word to publicize it either on WhatsApp or in their groups, later on Instagram, and then it helped me to get more people. Again, I had no access to all these celebrities because, as you can imagine, I had nothing to do with them. You come from film industry, I am like miles away from film industry, right?
Mm.
So, but suddenly now because of the WhatsApp power of network, these people have got involved and they are enjoying it. So I think um, what I think one point I want to share with your audience is that it's a lot of grunt work on WhatsApp. So so you have to make groups, you have to remind people to share it in their groups. If you put one message in the group, nobody is going to do it. But if you go to Utkarsh personally and tell him, Utkarsh, this is a message from me, he will do it. Because now it has come one on one.
Mm.
But if in a group there are 1,000 people and put one message, maybe 10 people will do something about it. The rest are going to ignore it because they think this message is not for me, it's for somebody else. But if
Mm.
I send one on one, you have nowhere to hide, so to speak.
Mm.
So there is a lot more. I'll say people are a lot more responsive. So, but this is grunt work. So you go to
Mm.
every person, send it, and a stranger is not going to do anything for you till the stranger is convinced that I want to do. So out
Mm.
of these 4,000 people, 100 people are my friends and family. The rest all are strangers. I have never met them, never seen them. So if I now go and tell them that you put it in your WhatsApp group about my message, my group, they need to first see value because they are going to put their neck on the line. So first I have to
Correct.
cultivate these people, right? Again, using your investment banking skills, keeping them happy, servicing them if they ask a question, being prompt about it, solving their problems, X, Y, Z, usual customer service. Once they see value and once they see that yes, this guy is legit, then they will put it in their WhatsApp groups. Otherwise, why will anybody put a stranger? If I tell you, Utkarsh, some stranger is going to put some WhatsApp group, you will not put it because they will see the messages coming from Utkarsh, right? Have you met this person? Do you know this person? And today, you know how phishing frauds are, right? World is anyway paranoid, right? So
Correct.
nobody wants to have a message which is uh, weird, and especially, and one. I think I'm very happy about one thing. The power of WhatsApp is that if you are able to get the buy-in, the customer, or not the customer, but that group member is willing to part with most private information, which is the mobile number.
Mm.
It's very, very powerful because with the mobile number, everything is connected. You get your OTPs, you get your everything is on mobile number. So if somebody is sharing your mobile number and coming on your group, and especially let's say a celebrity, you have power
Yeah.
because then they are parting with very, very private information. Because I and the entire group can see that this person is on the group and they can communicate. To get to that stage, you need to get that trust that I am in a safe zone.
Mm.
Because otherwise, on Insta, on Yahoo, on Facebook, you don't get phone numbers.
Correct.
So I think that is the power of WhatsApp. If you are able to
Correct.
convince people.
These are very good insights, to build a community. Is you need to connect one on one with the people. You
Yes.
cannot treat them like bunch of people.
No, nobody will respond. So in my phone book, everybody with whom I have a conversation is now a, a name in my address book. So
Hmm.
I know them.
No,
But to
nice.
get to that stage, so it is not Utkarsh Garg, it is not just the number. I have saved them as a friend. So when they
Hmm.
send me a message, I can see their WhatsApp status, and we now are connected, not just the group.
It's very diligent, hard work, I guess.
Very,
You know,
yeah, it is grunt work, but that I have done in investment banking also. So in
Hmm.
investment bank, I learned this in investment banking actually. So when I was in Nomura was not a great brand in comparison to Goldman Sachs, Bank of America,
Yeah.
Morgan Stanley. I don't need to tell you what these guys do, but if I tell you Nomura, you will ask me what do they do, because we are not
Hmm.
a great brand in India.
Hmm.
Obviously, globally we are a great brand, and but in India, and especially in a business which I was in, like I said, in 9 years we had done two IPOs, so nobody knew us to do IPOs. So when I did my first 10 IPOs, I had to put in like messages to every client telling them personally that I have done this IPO so that the recall happens. That yes, Nomura also does this, Nomura also does this, Nomura also does this. So that advertising has to happen consistently for them to start associating you with something new.
Hmm.
Because otherwise, the first recall is, bulge brackets like Bank of America or a Goldman or a Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, whatever. So I learned that if I have to create space here, I'll have to do it every time. I just cannot go on a WhatsApp group and just send a message to them. It will not happen.
So how you used to do it? You used
So
to
I
send
use
them
that.
mail, or
Yeah.
how do
So when you send emails, you cannot send bulk emails where it's all marketable. You send personally, and all those small things you have to do when you are building your brand, because people are also very smart that they know that when an email has come through a bulk email and when it has been written personally, they know it. You also know it. I also know it, right? And today,
now
Chat
we
GPT
have
writes email.
now that we have mail merge, we can personalize
Correct,
mails. I
correct,
mean,
correct. Even then,
but
people differentiate, right?
yeah,
That who has written this email.
correct, correct,
So,
correct.
because now Chat GPT can write an email, and people will quickly know who has written this email,
Yes,
because
yes, for
mind is always powerful, and we are looking for the more we interact through screens, the more we are looking for personalization actually, because then we start missing it. If I send Utkarsh Garg a postcard today, you will keep that postcard for the next 5 years
correct, correct, correct.
because you have never
Actually,
received a
our
postcard.
startup was around sending postcards, right? So
Yeah.
I totally relate with that. The personalization and how personalization adds value, and that's when this idea stuck to me. My first startup was sending postcards. It was an app, right, which used
Okay.
to personalize poetries for special occasions, and you can
Right.
send because I was bored with Archies and Hallmark cards, and I thought there could
Right.
be an interesting stuff, right? So coincidental you mentioned that, and that was the thing, right? Which I did. So interesting conversation, I think, coming ranging from your childhood days to you figuring out crosswords, and then finance, and then flavor of nationalism, right? Which kept you going. So I think
Yeah.
cool.
Definitely. I'm actually sad that I'm the only one crossword constructor. I want that my example, or rather the road which I have paved, is taken by many more. So hopefully, in the community, some more young people take it up. So it's not a very great credential that I'm the only one. I definitely am happy I'm the first, but I think there should be an army now
Correct.
behind me. Maybe once this catches some more fire,
Yes.
people will see interest.
So I think we had an interesting conversation, and you being a category creator in this space, very unique sort of a thing, right? Which nobody can even dream of doing, right? I want to ask what's next, right? What next
Yeah.
for you? What you want to build next, right? Are you onto something? And what are you dreaming of? Doing next in life.
So clearly, I come from investment banking space. I am a hardcore capitalist.
Hmm.
So my dream is to bring that capitalism to Crosswords.
Okay.
So so far, Crosswords is seen as a free activity which you get in a newspaper, right?
Mhm.
But if I can make it a paid model, I don't know who will pay. Either the solver will pay, or the advertiser will pay, or I don't know how. But I
Mhm.
wanted to make it a capitalist model wherein we will have some kind of a business model to it, and that is one. And second, I want to take it to the masses because I'll just give you one data point. India is the largest English speaking population on the planet, and we
Yes.
don't have our own crossword is
Mm-hmm.
unacceptable to me. So I want that people have an avenue to enjoy the language
Mm-hmm.
uh, at a place where they feel comfortable, which is
Mm-hmm.
India, about Indians, about our culture, our words, our interpretation of words.
Mm-hmm.
So these two things are keeping me busy right now.
Oh, that's a great mission and very interesting to know. And I didn't know that we don't have a Indian crossword as of now. But I
No,
think you
so
have built one.
yes, I have built one, and I have recently released a book on Amazon. It's called Indian Mini Crosswords. So
Mhm.
that also your audience can buy to test out my puzzles. That's the
Nice.
first book on Indian Mini Crosswords ever. There's no
Mhm.
such book available in the market. Initial reviews are extremely good. So there are, I think, 14 odd reviews. I have released it just 1 month back, and 1 month back I have got 14 reviews. All the 14 are 5-star reviews, and they are all solvers. They're all from my WhatsApp group. So that's again another first, that there's at least a book now where we can say yes, there is a book of Indian mini crosswords. So all those, as you rightly said, this is a category creation. Like nobody told me to make a book. I made a book. Now there's a website. There are going to be some more features on the website. We will gamify it. We will see where it goes. But uh, we have to form our own rules and break our own rules, so to speak.
So, anybody watching this who is a problem solver, we have all links, as said by Mangesh, the WhatsApp groups, the link of the book in the description, and you have a chance to get your number saved by Mangesh as well because he chats personally to whoever reaches out to him. So you
Absolutely.
can reach out. He is very accessible on that part that I understand from this conversation, and which is something I learned from here because I I was not that fan of personalization, or I thought it's too much when we reach out to corporates because I'm part of the startup ecosystem, so
Yeah.
I'll definitely think more about that. How can I do more personalization when I reach out to people? Right? So very
Yeah. I
interesting
mean,
conversation. I think any final words you would like to say here?
no. First of all, thank you, Utkarsh. As I mentioned to you, I we have met for the first time on LinkedIn. So thank you first of all for approaching me. This is also my first sort of video podcast, so definitely something new for me as an experience. Uh, and my final words, I think, as I'm where I am in the journey right now, and where India is right now, I think if again the capitalist in me doesn't die. So I just
Hmm.
keep thinking that today, if we are, whatever, 3.5 trillion economy, and if we want to become a 10 trillion economy by 2047, say, for example, we should be thinking which companies are going to be the next $1 trillion companies from India? Because 3.5 trillion to 10 trillion, 7 trillion cannot come only from existing companies which exist today,
Mm.
which I don't see that. You will need fresh ideas of which will become a $1 trillion company. Then we have a chance of reaching that 10, anywhere closer to 10. Because as corporate life cycles are, right? The companies which are today the largest companies are also in a way old companies, right? And they are going to have their own life cycles. They are not, they have almost peaked, right? So where will the next 5 trillion come is is an open slate for all of us. It could be anybody from us. So that I think is what keeps me thinking.
Awesome. I think with this message, I think it's amazing end to this conversation. I think we can go hours and hours of chatting and discussing about the opportunity on both sides of being problem solvers, being largest country in terms of adopting something, and then also becoming economy as big as you predicted, right, by
Yeah,
2047. So with this, I think we have set the good stage for people to think about what we have discussed. And I thank you for joining us at Tribex. Would love to chat more with you in coming days and maybe be part of your
sure.
initiative. Thank you so much, Mangesh.
100%. 100%. As I said, if we collaborate, we grow faster.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. See ya.